We're talking Western Michigan Broncos today here on Sharp of the Point. 2024, somewhat disappointing at a 6-7 record, but you go bowling, you can't complain too much. Head coach Lance Taylor enters his third season, brings in a new defensive coordinator, Chris O'Leary, former safeties coach with the Los Angeles Chargers. We'll see how that works out. Quarterback-wise, you had solid starter Hayden Wolf graduates after a satisfactory season with 2,400 yards and 18 touchdowns. He was tasked to be more of a game manager as he was a statue back there, being highly immobile with a sacks counting against him, a lot of negative yardage rushing games. Wolf's backup last season, Brock Lowry, stands to take over. And while he had a limited game time a year ago, he showed that he's much more of a threat on the ground than Wolf was, gaining 133 yards and 3 touchdowns. His mobility is going to help the line limit the sacks from last season where they gave up 24 a year ago. Given the quality run game they possess, he should benefit from lanes early in the season as teams adjust to him being more mobile, while the running backs later in the season are likely to benefit from the fact that teams are going to have to account for Lowry's mobility. Now, if Lowry comes out and just stinks the joint up, expect JUCO transfer Brady Jones, he's pretty highly rated, to push him and be there to take over should Lowry not be able to hold up to what they're hoping from him. Running back wise, it was a three-way split a year ago with a 30-carry difference separating the leading rusher Jaden Nixon and third place Zahir Abdus Salam. Now, both Nixon, who had 919 yards and 12 touchdowns, and Abdus Salam, 600 yards and 3 touchdowns, depart, leaving Jalen Buckley, who had 683 yards and 9 touchdowns, to take over what should be a more workhorse role with what is behind him on the depth chart. My expectation is that Buckley's going to reach the 200 carry mark north of 1,000 yards, a double-digit touchdown season expanding on what he did in the 2023 season, which was more productive for him. It's, I think, more of a Sean Tucker-like role. Sean Tucker from Syracuse. Sean Tyler-like role is something that we would be able to see from Buckley going forward. The question is going to be who of the transfers behind him is going to step into that 1B secondary type spell role between Cole Cabana, Divine Miles, and Ofa Matele. Cabana has the leg up right now after impressing during the spring game, in which he noted the lack of help. He had a lot of injuries at Michigan that impacted his development, and he showed well in the spring, so he's probably the lead candidate to be the backup and see some work behind Buckley early in the season specifically. Pass catching wise, on its surface, losing your top 2 wide receivers, Kenneth Womack and Anthony Sambucci, is a concern, but given the fact that they combined for less than 1,000 yards and 4 touchdowns, they probably upgraded in talent from those more limited weapons. Adding Christian Leary from Georgia Tech, previously at Alabama, and Tyleik Williams from Georgia State give them far more upside than they possessed before, as each has showed flashes of potential at their previous stops. Tyleik Williams, nice big target. He's played well. He was just overshadowed by Ted Hurst in that Georgia State system, while Leary just kind of got overshadowed by Malik Rutherford and Eric Singleton at Georgia Tech, but he also showed some explosive capability. You probably remember he's the one who caught the long touchdown from Haynes King against Miami to win that improbable comeback game where Mario Cristobal should have just taken a knee. They need one of those two or both need to put it together if they can, and if they can, then this can be a legitimate passing attack, which they have not seen since the likes of Sky Moore and Corey Kroom's combination. Beyond those two, Malik Deduan should start in 3 wide receiver sets, but there's a ton of questions beyond that, with Balin Brooks probably factoring into the rotation as well, with him coming over from San Diego State. Leary and Williams are the clear top talents in that room. They just need to They need a hit. Tight end Blake Bosma is going to return. That's a big keep for them. 6 touchdowns a year ago, leading the team. He's going to provide a nice steady presence over the middle of the field and be a good target to be able to move the chains, and a good red zone target last season and this year as well. On the offensive line, big question marks. All 5 starters graduated from a year ago. It creates a ton of issues as to how effective this quality rushing attack is going to be going forward. Specifically, right guard Addison West. He was the first ever Western Michigan player to be named a first-team All-American, and that's a big loss. Left guard wise, John Hoffer is the most experienced of the bunch. He had some starts, and he's going to be looked upon to anchor the line. They did add a lot of quality players, though, to take up these positions. 3 transfers specifically, with center Raheem Anderson coming from Michigan, right guard Hunter Whitenack coming from Illinois, and Zach Vaughn coming from Wake Forest. Whitenack has the most starting experience of the bunch, having started 3 games at Illinois. Each comes with a great pedigree. They could hit if their skill set that landed them at these P4 programs comes through at these levels. We've seen this before where guys transferred down, specifically along the lines of scrimmage, are a little bit more successful than, let's say, these guys that are wide receivers that were recruited. They tend to hit a little bit more. Looking at you, Makai Polk. Defensive line-wise, the losses of defensive end Corey Walker to Wisconsin, and his 5.5 sacks is a problem. Defensive tackle Ontario Thompson goes to Washington. Defensive tackle Isaiah Green and Mason Nelson also depart, with Nelson going to Vanderbilt. That all hurts the depth of that defensive line, specifically up the middle. Last season, they struggled to rush the passer. They need to be better this year. I don't know that they will be, considering they lost so much as well. Additions of Nadam Tucker from Houston and Ray Stewart from Indiana are big, as they will help to replace the talent that was lost, although there are a number of question marks along the line of scrimmage for these Broncos. Linebacker-wise, you graduate all top 3 linebackers from a year ago, including Donald Willis, who had 109. Last season's backups, Dominic Moon and Dylan Moore, will look to fill 2/3 of the rotation, although it will need to be seen as to how they will perform in those expanded roles. Defensive back-wise, it's an older secondary. Both safeties return. I love it when safeties return, because they add a steady presence on the back end and can kind of clean up a lot of issues. Both corners are going to be swapped out for transfers. Javarius Sims from UConn and Jordan Thomas from Eastern Kentucky. They have played a lot of ball. The safeties we mentioned, Tate Hollick and Aaron Wofford, they're the clear strength of this defense. Whereas Thomas from Eastern Kentucky, he's a playmaking, a ball-hawking safety corner. I really like his capability. He broke up 14 passes a year ago. He played well against the run. He's a physical corner. He'll fit in really well in the MAC. I think using him against the run is going to be a big deal. I think teams might end up running away from him in reality due to his capability to play against the run. Looking at the 2025 schedule and outlook, they brought in the most transfers in the MAC with 19, and that number continues to go up, including at least 7 from Power 4 teams. So they're trying to get depth and talent from coming down, specifically along the lines, and that's going to be a key for them, is how they hold up on the line. The offense has solid weapons at the skill positions and likely could be better from a skill standpoint, even with the losses of those good running backs from a year ago, because the pass game weapons are that much better. The biggest question is clearly the line. I believe they addressed it well in the portal. Those 3 P4 additions look to be quality enough for them to be able to play well. They just need to gel as a unit. And then quarterback. Right now, quarterback's probably the biggest weakness on the offense, and how that situation develops between Brock Lowry and Brody Jones is going to go a long way in telling us how far this team can go in the long run. On the defensive side, there's far more questions than answers. I feel good about the secondary. I think that safety tandem is very good. I like the cornerback tandem. That's just about where my good feelings end, though. The line is doubtful to get after the passer again, and the linebackers are a complete unknown at this point. We're gonna need more to see what we have here. But early in the season, I think they're going to be run on, and there could be issues getting to the passer, which is going to stress that defensive back room. Even though while they're quality, if they have to cover for a long period of time, they're going to be in a tough spot. Schedule-wise, at Michigan State, that's a tough start. It's a paycheck game. Aiden Childs, it's a good, well-coached team. I think that's a quick, easy loss there. North Texas, that's going to be a super interesting game. You get them at home. I like that. There's going to be a ton of pressure on this offense to perform right away because this is a top 5 offense in the country statistically from a yards per game standpoint of North Texas, facing off with a team that can't rush the passer. If you can't rush the passer, how are you going to keep up with a high-powered offense that likes to chuck it all over the yard? I think that's interesting. That's a tough matchup. At Illinois, no shot. That is one of the best teams in the Big Ten. They're going to be a dominant team, and that's not a bad loss. Now, after those 3, you get Toledo. That's a tough MAC opener. That's a very good team. You're staring down the barrel of 0-4. Whew. I mean, how do you bounce back from that? Well, at least you get Rhode Island. So you're going to get a win on the board. I think that's your first win. I think you bounce back. You needed that soft landing there to get a little bit of momentum heading into a little bit of an easier setup there where you get at UMass. That's a win. I don't think UMass is good enough. You get Ball State. You get hot a little bit here. You get a win there. Ball State, I think, is still struggling. This is a good enough roster to be able to handle them. Going to Miami of Ohio, if Daquan Finn's healthy, I'm going to keep stressing that. If Daquan Finn stays healthy, that's a too talented of a team. It's going to be a tough matchup, specifically with the way the defense is set up here. That's a loss. You get Central Michigan. They seem to be the team that I like to put as a coin flip for everybody. They're going to be a coin flip for most everybody. That's an in-state, somewhat rivalry game. Coin flip there. I would expect Western to be able to handle their business there and get a win. Going and playing Ohio at home, that's a tough matchup. I think Ohio is just a better brand of this football, being able to run the football, depending how this pass attack develops. But I think Ohio is just too tough to take down. At Northern Illinois, that game's in play because of their deficiencies on offense in the passing game, but it's a tough matchup. I'd say it's a 30-70 loss, likely 30% to win, 70% to lose. At Eastern Michigan, that's a coin flip game. I expect you to be favored to take care of business there. They likely need an upset to go bowling this season. 4 to 5 wins feels like the most likely scenario if no upset occurs. And if they get good quarterback play, they could be a dangerous team. They're going to surprise some people if they get good quarterback play. I think the line's going to be good enough and going to hold up. I think they're going to be able to run the football, and I think the weapons on the outside are quality enough that if the quarterbacks show up and can show out, they will surprise somebody on this schedule.